Steve, great to have you along. How are you, sir?
Good, Silly. How are you doing?
Good, sir. I want to talk to you about anti-inflammatory diseases. Talk about that for us so we know what maladies we're speaking of here.
Great question, because you kind of think of inflammation, you get a cut or you get a scrape, and you get redness, and you kind of feel like taking some Advil. So that's not the inflammation we're actually talking about. It's fascinating in diseases with the human body. Inflammation is one of the leading causes of over 70 different diseases. Everything from acute respiratory distress syndrome to Parkinson's disease to Alzheimer's disease to cardiovascular disease. So this inflammation is really dangerous to the human body. It is usually in the form of what they call cytokines. So you'll hear terms like that, like IL-1 beta and IL-18, but it's really almost like poison and toxin to the body.
Steve, there's also what you and I talked about off air. Your drug focused on renal malady. What does a renal malady consist of in your?
Sure. So as we talked about, so we got two different platforms here at the company. One is focused on kidney disease, and if you think about kidney disease, you probably know someone that's gone through dialysis or had some relatives that went through a transplant. And kidney disease, you talk about pandemics. We've talked, we made it through the COVID pandemic. It's become endemic now. And now if you look at kidney disease, it's actually one of the biggest pandemics in the United States and worldwide. In the United States, for example, you've got about 20% of your Medicare budget being spent on the treatment of kidney diseases. And quite frankly, we're not doing well around the treatment of them. There's a huge unmet medical need. And, the way it kind of shapes up is, you go to the doctor for your physical, maybe you're a little fatigued or not feeling quite right. They go in and they, do a urinalysis. And the next thing you know, they tell you got protein in the urine. And that, my friend, is the beginning of kidney disease.
Oh, wow. Steve Glover is our guest. He is, of course, the chairman and CEO of a company called ZyVersa Therapeutics. This is for our radio audience who can't see his graphics on the screen, but they are publicly traded under the stock symbol ZVSA.
Steve, I have some questions for you. I follow a lot of different counts, and I see the word inflammation come up a lot, and I wonder, what are the things that are the main causes? Is it food? A lot of the things that you're seeing is causing this?
Very insightful question, because there's really kind of three things. And, you get a lot of press out there around diet, right? And clearly there are dietary impacts here to inflammation. And then there is genetic profiles of, that inherently are there in all of us that have survived through the eons that have a genetic component to inflammation. And then there is the inflammation caused by what's called your innate immune system or your adaptive immune system. So, for example, if you get a viral infection or you get a bacterial infection, that stimulates inflammation in your body. And left unchecked, you actually end up with some pretty severe problems from inflammation, anything from rheumatoid arthritis to Alzheimer's disease.
Hey, Steve, talk to us about your lead drug, VAR 200. I've read all about it. I want the rest of the world to hear about it.
Well, a big passion of mine, Sully. I mean, I've been doing this since my days at Amgen and Roche, and renal disease is a horrible disease. You end up in dialysis, end-stage renal disease, and transplant. And there's really kind of three issues you're trying to treat around this. One's inflammation that we were kind of talking about. The other is hypertension. And the third component of this is cholesterol and lipids that get accumulated around a structure in your kidney called a podocyte. And when that happens, your cells can't get rid of the cholesterol and lipids, and these podocytes die. They create a slit in the kidney, and that dumps protein into your urine. So what we're doing is developing VAR 200 or VAR 200 is targeted at restoring the homeostasis of those cells around the kidney, around the podocyte, and slowing the progression of podocyte loss and slowing progression of the disease.
Steve, can you expound on the diabetic aspect of it? I've got diabetics in my family, so I'm acutely aware of what they have to watch out for and what they have to go through.
You talk about pandemics, it's diabetes type 2. That leads right in for many, many patients into diabetic kidney disease, which is the first area that we're studying. And really what you see is a progression of multi-system organ failure, and kidney is just a part of that, right? And what happens is as your kidneys begin to function less and less, obviously you get a lot of side effects from the diabetes type 2. That's why you end up in diabetic kidney disease. You're on a polypharmacy, you're on all types of medications, both for your diabetes as well as your kidney component of that. And that's where your slow progression down this hill to end-stage renal disease starts to take place. It's just horrible progress.
Steve, that's VAR 200, correct, that we're speaking of there?
That's VAR 200.
There's also an IC 100, and that's for anti-inflammatory. Let's talk about that.
So every so often in the industry, I always say every 10 years, scientific breakthrough and innovation starts to take place. And that's why I love doing what I'm doing and why we're all in this over these years. These inflammasomes that we're talking about that initiate this inflammation cascade that I was talking about were discovered about 15 years ago by a whole host of researchers, but particularly the people we work with down at the University of Miami medical system. And these inflammasomes lead to all of this inflammation I was talking about, all these various diseases. And this inflammation is really just horrible. And there's a thing called an inflammasome in here. And when that gets activated, when you get this virus or bacteria for the first time, you activate this innate immune system called structure called inflammasome. And what we have done is take a very different approach, because there's over 20,000 publications out there now talking about what these inflammasomes do to the human body. And when we started out, there was one, and now there's at least 12 that we know of. So what we've done is target a biologic or a monoclonal antibody that is very unique in targeting all 12 of the inflammasomes and not just one, trying to knock down this toxic inflammation that people get in these diseases.
So Steve, tell me, biotech macroeconomic environment has been, maybe tough over the last few years, but we're going into a new year. It looks promising. Talk to me about that.
Maybe tough is an underestimate. I will say I've seen more smiles by the biotech people I've talked with over the last couple of weeks than I've seen in 2 years. And I think the environment, is going to be fascinating in 2024. I think you're seeing a macro change. We all, follow this with the interest rate and inflation. I think we're seeing a program here in 2024, if the Fed follows through, where as you reduce these rates, I think you'll see cycling back into the biotech sector. And I think that's really important for people to understand. I saw the same thing during the pandemic, where people cycled out of travel and entertainment. They came into biotech. And then after the pandemic was over, they cycled back out. And I'm seeing this now in the conversations with multiple CEOs that I talk with. I'm on the board of 2 other public companies as chairman. And we got the JPM conference coming up in San Francisco in January. And there's just a lot of hope and smiles. And I think you're seeing this in the market, investors cycling back into the XBI and investing.
Steve, fantastic stuff. I can't wait to have you back on the air. Once again, his name's Steve Glover, Chairman and CEO, ZyVersa Therapeutics. Stock symbol ZVSA. You go to ZyVersa.com. Hey, Steve, bring him back up there for a second, would you, Jared? I was totally paying attention during the whole thing, but this whole time I just realized the desk behind you is a desk. I thought it was a piano the whole time. So if you turn around and go like this, I think it looks like you're in a honky tonk. Look at that. There you go. Big business.
I wish I was that talented as the band that you've got. Unfortunately, I just do model airplanes.
Perfect. See you later. ZyVersa, ZVSA, Big Biz Show, BigBizShow.com.